Hey there, mindful travelers, and welcome to the very first episode of The Caring Traveler, a show where we shed light on the good in the world by sharing stories of people who do more than travel. These caring and selfless humans strive to change the world one nameless stranger at a time through conscious action wherever they happen to find themselves in the world. I'm here with Adam Fleming today. Adam G. Fleming, let me correct that. He is a leadership coach from Goshen, Indiana, with 12 years experience training other people in coaching skills. Through his nonprofit work, he has trained leaders in Congo, Egypt, Syria, among many other countries. He is also a novelist and author of several nonfiction and fiction books. He is married to Megan, and they have 4 children. So all that being said, thank you so much for joining me, Adam. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk about traveling.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. So let's get to it. I know if you've been following me on my other endeavors, you know that I'm an author, and that's where I met Adam. He is a fantastic writer. I haven't read his book yet, but go check out our interview over on my other channel. It's called Story Unfolding. He was my very first interview on that channel as well. So he's special. He's getting to be #1 on both channels. But all that whole biography that we just talked about with him, all those things he's done, we're not talking about the Congo. We're not talking about his nonprofit. We're here talking about something completely different, an achievement that many people have sought to do. And I myself heard about this on a podcast and told my wife, one day I want to do this. And it's one of those hikes that people have probably heard about. It's not the Appalachian Trail, not the Pacific Crest Trail. It is the Camino de Santiago. So the one that you walk from, I believe, France to Spain, but I don't know, I'm not the expert. It's an amazing achievement, and Adam wants to do it all over again. So I want to hear from him. Tell us all about it. What is it about? Adam?
Yeah, the Camino de Santiago is a series of routes. Actually, it's almost like a spider web out from Santiago. So you can come from the north coast of Spain, you can come from Portugal or France. And I even met some people who had gone all the way from Germany through France and northern Spain. You can go there from Italy, or you can go from Malaga, Sevilla, other points in southern Spain. So people have been hiking to Santiago de Compostela, where traditionally it was believed that the remains of St. James were buried there. And so that was one of the ancient pilgrimages in the Christian religion, where people would go all the way from wherever they were to Santiago. And then get this, that 800 years ago, they had to turn around and walk home. Now you get there and you hop on a bus or a plane or a train and you go home. However, but if you think about it, back in the day, a pilgrimage like that didn't just mean walking there; it meant going back. And famous people as far back as the 1200s, like Saint Francis of Assisi, went all the way from Italy to Santiago and back over a several-year period. So this is something that people have been doing a really long time. And for obviously now today, it's very popular because there are a lot of hostels and there are a lot of restaurants every 10 miles or so. You can walk a leg that's like 10, 14 miles in a day with a pack without having to carry a tent, without having to carry food. And so there's lodging and it's just a great network of hostels, so that you can take, if you're not religious, it's fine. You can take a hiking tour and you can go to Santiago. If you are religious too, or wherever you're at, with that whole thing, you're welcome to go on one of these routes. And it's a great experience of just getting out there and hiking. So
those of you who are thinking Italy to Spain, it's not this grueling, you have to be an Ironman to do it, right?
No, I would say I'm a good 15 pounds overweight and I didn't have any trouble. So, I mean, I'm a lot fitter than I was a couple of years ago when I started walking really regularly. And it definitely I was eating as much as I could during that trip and still lost several pounds over a couple of weeks period. So you do need to prepare and be in shape, but you don't have to be an Ironman, that's for sure. It's kind of like, I would say it's like a medium difficulty physical adventure. It's definitely not easy, but it's not the hardest thing that you can do out there either, you know.
Yeah, so I think that's why I was really interested to bring you on this channel. I wanted to talk to you about it because, you know, with the concept of what we do at Novel Excursion and now what I'm trying to do with the channel, you know, it's all about being mindful and being in touch with, you know, humanity and others around you and the environment and everything else. So, you know, everyone that I've talked to and heard from, you know, that do these through hikes, they say it's a very, you know, transformative experience, something that, you know, you really find this in touch with yourself component. And I think I was really interested with the Camino because of its religious background, albeit, you know, you don't have to be religious to do it, but with that fundamental foundation that, you know, that it started from, I feel like, does it have a little bit more, well, you haven't done, you can't compare, but would you say that it's a, I guess, mindful experience, kind of transformative experience?
Absolutely. It's a mindful, transformative experience. You know, I hiked a couple days and I came to a place that was like a private hostel. It was run by a woman named Fernanda and her husband Jacinto. And they built an extra little cabin in the back of their property for people to stay. It's got like 10 bunks in it or something. And then in the evening, they just gather everyone around the table and feed them. And you just have this like community dinner with people from all parts of the globe that you never met before. It's amazing. And then they say to you, you know, you're just getting started. This is just a couple days in. It's your Camino. Walk it your way. What I take that to mean is be mindful of what you need. That evening, a woman who runs a fish restaurant in Germany said, hey, maybe we'll walk together tomorrow. And I said, yeah, maybe. Let's see how that goes. And I woke up early, grabbed something to eat, and decided, I mean, no offense to her, but I just wanted to walk by myself that day. And you're taking care of yourself first. And then sometimes you just find yourself walking all day with someone else and building this relationship out of nothing, you know. So I would say I probably hiked about, I think, 2/3 of the entire 200 some miles all alone. Just me, nature, and my pack. There were a couple of days that I walked the entire day with one person, the woman from the fish restaurant owner. We called her Sammy. She's got a Serbian name. She says, it's hard to say. Just call me Sammy. And we ended up walking together the entire next day. So I was like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to walk with you and I'm promising you that. And in the morning I got up and I waited for Sammy to be ready to go. And we walked the entire next leg together and it was great. So there's this, like, you need to be mindful of, you can be with other people. And as I've thought about how I would lead a small group on this thing, I would say the same thing to people that I'm guiding. There's yellow arrows along the way, all over the place. And once you're comfortable with that, if you want to, you can walk all day by yourself. I'm just here to help if you need it, or to be a friend, someone to walk with if you need it, but you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not about doing what anyone else wants you to do or thinks you should do. It's kind of like, do you want to walk by yourself? Great. Do you want to walk with someone else and they're agreeable? Great. So I got to tell you one story before I forget, because this involves Sammy too. With Sammy and 4 other people, another one from Germany, 2 from the Netherlands, a guy from Ireland, we're sitting around the table one evening. We've come to this city together. So, some of us, you know, separate, but we meet up in the evening, right? And hey, let's get dinner over here at this restaurant. And we're sitting around, and you know me, I'm the poet. So I'm just sitting there looking at all my new friends. You know, I said, hey guys, I want to make a toast. And they all stop and look at me, and I raise my glass. And I just said, to old roads and new friends. Because we're hiking on Roman road numeral 19. So this thing was late. This trail has been walked for 2,000 years, but we have these brand new friends that we just met. And I just said to old roads and new friends, that's it. Cheers, and everybody and they look at me and they're like, that's exactly it. That's exactly what that summed up the entire experience.
Cue all the epiphanies, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so the coolest thing about that, I'm going to fast forward, so I'll let you ask more questions because I'm just going to ramble otherwise.
Oh, no worries.
I got to Santiago. Sammy had gotten there the day before. The two gals from the Netherlands, I thought they were long since done, but I bumped into them like 11 kilometers from the finish. And so these two young med students from the Netherlands, I'm walking together with them. We get to the cathedral and Sammy is there waiting for us. She'd gotten there the day before, and then she came back to the plaza, to wait for us and welcome us to Santiago. And the cathedral is amazing. It's beautiful. You're just looking up at it. Like it just points you right up to the sky. And Sammy pulls up her sleeve and she's got Old Roads, New Friends tattooed on her wrist.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, what? That's a really incredible experience that you can't manipulate anything to get that kind of thing. You can't force anything. You just go and you walk by yourself and you walk with other people and the friendships. You don't know if it doesn't matter because you're leaving your identity at home, right? This is the cool thing for me. As you introduced me as a leadership coach. I've done training around the world. I wouldn't say I'm famous, but I've had some successes. And I took all that identity that can be wrapped up in what you do, defining who you are, and just left it at home. Because all I was a pilgrim. I got the backpack on. I'm just walking, just like that guy, just like that lady. And just like, Sammy, the fish restaurant owner, and Joe, the former CFO corporate guy, and everybody's just got a backpack and we're walking. And that's it.
That's amazing.
So
I feel like
it's an incredible experience.
That's an amazing lesson for leaders as well, too, though. Because leaders need to humble themselves to understand that, you are just like every other person that you lead, right? Yeah. I feel like that's kind of what's driving you to this, you're returning to do this again. And you mentioned it and we haven't really talked about it yet, but you were going to be guiding people on your next trip, right?
Right.
How about you tell us a little bit more about that? Like what's going on with this?
Yeah. So the idea is for this November, actually, I think it's the last day or two of October that we would travel to Porto, Portugal, which is the route that I walked last year. So I'm ready. Since I walked it once before, I'm ready to guide other people on it. I am only taking 3 people and maximum. Even one is fine if one person wants to go with me. 1, 2, or 3 people, but no more. And the reason is because I feel like I did occasionally see some tour groups. There were like 20 people. And I knew that all their attention was focused inward. And they weren't meeting anybody like what I would call a rando. That's what I live near Notre Dame, and that's what the students used to call it. Anybody who wasn't like originally in their group and was just hanging out with them for the evening. Oh yeah, you were with that rando guy. So I'm trying to talk the kids, how the kids talk. Anyways, you're not going to meet any randos if you're in a group of like 20 people. But I feel like that's a beautiful part of the experience is to maybe have a group of 3 or 4 people, and that's your group. And you're sort of together, but you're also completely have the freedom to just meet someone else and say, hey, you seem like an interesting person. You're walking the same speed as me. Let's talk. Let's get to know each other. And I think it gives us this opportunity to be mindful of ourselves and what we need first, not in a selfish way, in a humble way, but also then just sharing ourselves. Not being there to necessarily to help anybody, but then when you can, I went on from Fernanda's house. I'm jumping back to there. And I walked another 12 miles the next day. And I got to the hostel and I was like, oh crap. I left my my technology kit. So I had like a plastic bag to keep it from getting wet, with like a keyboard, that Bluetooth, a little tiny keyboard about, as big as your hands, that Bluetooth to the telephone so I can type and write without having to carry a laptop. And my charger, for my phone charger, and my extra battery for the cell phone. So I had left this stuff at Fernanda's house. And I found their phone number and called them. And I was like, I left my tech. And I'm thinking, my gosh, I don't have time to backtrack and walk 6 hours back that way.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's no big deal. And like 15 minutes later, he was there because he had a car. And it's like when you, all of a sudden you're mindful of like how far 12 miles really is. And yet he jumps in the car and he's there and like, here's your stuff. And I'm like, how much do I owe you? Because to me, it's like a whole day's journey. And to him, it's like 10-minute car ride to bring it to the next town over. It's just like, and I'm like, what do I owe you? He's like, I'm not allowed to take payment from you. Pass it on. And I was like, oh man, I wonder how many days every year, because people are on these stages every day, right? They start the next day and then they come to his house. So people are coming through their house every evening, And so I was thinking, I wonder how many times he actually does this. Probably does it a couple times a week.
That's amazing.
And it's probably just part of his grocery run at this point. But to me, it was really like a big deal. Like I left, $100 worth of technology and stuff in the cabin. So then you find somebody else who needs some aspirin or some Tums or whatever you got in your pack that you can share, or a couple of euros or a granola bar. I mean, whatever. And you just like, you don't go to a restaurant like we were watching Seinfeld. If you ever watch Seinfeld, George is always like, okay, it's $6.42 each, like, you don't do that. You just like, hey, I bought a bottle of wine. Everybody enjoy it. So,
That's an amazing story though. I love that concept of, passing it on, passing it forward. We had a similar experience, not walking the Camino, of course, but we were actually at dinner and a nice man who was sitting next to us bought our like $45 dinner, like the whole thing, and didn't tell anyone. And he just told us, how wonderful our kids were and everything. And, it was nice and left. And then the waitress tells us, he paid for everything. And we're like, we didn't even get the opportunity to say thank you or anything. He was gone, like had no idea. So, I mean, we ended up tipping the total to our waitress, right? And we tried to pass it forward and she was so excited. And she said to my wife that I'm going to pass this forward. So it was just a wonderful experience just there, and I love that you had that, while abroad walking. And you talk about the 12 miles being, so much. Funny thing, we are on our way down to Oaxaca right now, right? And we're driving, we're in Mexico City right now. And our drive from the border down to Monterrey was so desolate. It was just empty desert and there was nothing. And I didn't realize that. I'd never been down there. I've always wanted to ride the Pan American Highway. I've heard people doing it, riding from Alaska all the way down to South America on their bicycle. I told my wife, I was like, I'd say we do the through hikes. I don't know if I want to ride this. Like, how long this would, like 6 hours of driving on this was so boring, so tiresome. I was like, this would have taken us like weeks just to ride. Like, I can't imagine it. So I don't know. It makes you a lot more mindful, like you said.
Absolutely. And even just hiking 4 to 6 hours by yourself through forest, through towns. I mean, it's not all nice. I mean, you're literally going from a city in Portugal to a city in Spain. So you're going to pass there's some places where there's forest paths. There's other places where you're just hoofing it through somebody's like suburb,
Oh, wow.
But it's cool because you'll have these people kind of come by you in their cars and they'll roll the window down and go, Bon Camino, like they know what you're doing because they see people walking through there every day,
It's a community.
It's a whole community. It's a whole community. Like there's a whole, like I think a lot of the people who have lived along the route have done it themselves,
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? If you live there, I mean, and you're capable of it. I mean, especially Yeah, with the pilgrimage aspect. I mean,
and especially, and and it's interesting because I I think it's I talk to people who are atheists. I talk to people who are like, one of the funniest stories. This guy's like, I'm not really that big of a like a churchgoer or whatever, but my mom is a huge Catholic. And there's another. Okay, so a little context. There's another place in Portugal where the Portuguese like to travel to called Fatima, where some kids had a vision in the 1920s or something. So he's like, my mom hiked a pilgrimage to Fatima, and she believes that every blister you get is like indicative of a sin that's in your life.
oh wow.
And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So this guy had his name was Alberto. His wife had a pregnancy that was difficult, and he just made a vow that if this baby is born healthy, I'm going to hike the Camino within the next year. So he had bought himself a brand new pair of waterproof boots and hadn't done any training to break them in. So you can imagine how many blisters.
Yes.
You can imagine how many blisters he gave himself with this brand new. So he got to the end. He's like, I have to go to the hospital. My blisters are so bad. I was like, man, that's a lot of sins.
Oh man, yeah, that's terrible.
He's like, I hope I'm forgiven. We're just messaging back and forth, but it's like you think about this stuff, and you just there's so many different ways, no matter what your religious persuasion is, that this will make you a better person.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. So I want to go back to, so you have some amazing stories, and I'm sure you could talk all night about some great stories, but I want to jump back to the fact that you are going to be leading people on this walk. So you're inviting people to come out with you this October/November.
Right.
I love, first off, just a comment and then a question. The comment that I love that you want to lead it in a way that everyone coming is still doing their own thing. So I feel like I was an officer in the military, and I got to learn how, a good leader is someone who I try to, distinguish myself by being the one who is always out there doing the stuff, not the one telling people, right? So I was guiding and trying to let people, grow, and I grew with them, right? And I feel like that's what you were doing as the leader of this expedition, this journey that you're leading. You have the experience, you have the expertise as the leadership coach, and you can bring a lot to the table with that. And I'd love for you, before we end, for you to talk about a little more of what you're going to bring to the table with that. But of course, you're going to bring a lot to the table for whoever comes with you. But also, you were leading as a peer. You were leading as this is a community. And I think that's extremely valuable. And I would absolutely, if I could get my 19-month-old and my 9-year-old to go out there right now, I would definitely join you this year. But I know we've talked about it. I'm going to be coming at some point.
Someday.
Yeah. So I think the question would be like more about, tell us more about traveling with you, what your vision is for this, this guide/project that you're doing, and what, someone can expect from getting, if they come travel with you.
Yeah, so my expectation is, number one, that people would train. We just talked about blisters a little bit. I don't want to guide people who have lots of blisters because I'm not a Catholic. I don't believe in doing penance, trying to pay for your sins by walking on blisters for 200 miles. It's just not my, well, basically it doesn't make it enjoyable. You're just in pain every step if you have 15 big blisters on your toes, right?
So it's a little hard to have any revelation when you're trying.
Yeah, you're just right. You're going to spend your entire time just feeling being in pain. And I would hope that people would enjoy it enough. Like, I mean, if you need to not drink alcohol, that's awesome. Like, I'll totally defend, like, if you're, in recovery, I'm going to protect you. But I think it can be an enjoyable experience where you hike really hard and then you enjoy a great meal, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But I want the mindfulness aspect of it, like 4 months of coaching beforehand, with me personally, one-on-one, or even in some group sessions where we just talk about especially about what it means, a couple of things, what it means to leave your identity behind when you go. So you're beginning to prepare yourself mentally and emotionally and spiritually for that over the 4 months leading up to it. The second thing is, what are you going to give up to become a different person? And anytime we do something that takes 2 weeks or more, we have to give up something. You may be giving up some income, or you may be giving up some, but what do you, even in the training period where you're starting to build up to having tough feet with calluses on them so that you're ready to walk 14 miles in a day, or even 19, right? Which means that you have to set aside enough time in the day to probably walk for at least 2 hours every day, which is a big chunk out of somebody's day. So what are you going to give? What are you going to give up, even just to do the training itself? And as a coach, my job isn't to tell people what to do or how to do it, but to invite them to think differently about how they're processing their life. So if it's something they want to do, it is a little bit, let's say, directive, in the sense that, yeah, you need to get started like walking tomorrow. And I have a nice list of like, here's the gear that you might want to bring and some of that kind of stuff. So that's the coaching perspective. Did I answer both of your questions at the same time?
Yeah, you did. So
sure.
are you looking for, are these people who have a corporate job or entrepreneurs or anyone specific that you're really looking for?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Anybody who feels like maybe they're on the edge of burnout, whether you're an entrepreneur or in corporate, or you're just contemplating perhaps a shift in life direction. So you may be in corporate, but you're ready for a sabbatical. Even nonprofit leaders sometimes need to take a break from, the good work that they're doing in the world, whatever they're. I have a friend here in my town who runs the food pantry. That is a high stress job. It doesn't pay a ton like a corporate job does, but it's every bit as much responsibility to take care of all the, it's logistics and like, it's nuts. So people who need a break, a little bit more of a significant break than like a weekend off, and are willing to train themselves up for that break and then be away for 3 weeks.
So 3 weeks, 3 weeks is time?
Yeah, it's about 3 weeks. So 2.5 to 3. There's a couple of options on the back end. So if people need to get back to families or whatever, they don't have to stay the whole 3 weeks, but it could be as long as 20 or 21 days. And to think and also mindfully about, okay, you're probably going to take your phone. Some of the guidebooks say leave it at home, but that's just not realistic in this world with COVID, where you have to be able to show QR codes to show that you can get on an airplane. Like you just can't. You can't get on an airplane without your phone anymore, it seems like. And it's a pretty handy device to grab pictures with, to do, and to communicate with your family, or even to communicate, like if we split up and there's 4 people walking, but they're all at different paces, even just to have a WhatsApp groups like, hey, I just sprained my ankle, like to be able to reach out and tell your group that you need help or whatever. But there needs to be some mindfulness also of like, how much are you checking your work email? Because that's not what this is for. So each person probably has to, depending on their situation, whether they're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or in corporate, somehow for themselves creating boundaries and parameters around how much they're checking work stuff while they're doing this. And if they're not willing to do that, I don't know, probably would rather not have them come along. So
I think a willingness to change, a willingness to experience it and immerse yourself in the community and the cultures and everything around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the randos, like, hey, there's a guy speaking French. I speak a little French. I'm just going to go up and talk to him and see where he's from, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
So I know, let's see, there was one more question that was at the top of my head, and then I lost it when you started talking about French, because I have so many stories from France that I could talk about. But just to recap, so if they sign up, when do you want people to sign up by? Do you have an end date?
Yes, I do. It's July 1st, 2022.
Okay, July 1st. And where can people sign up?
So my website is motivationallistening.international.
Okay.
That's my company name also, motivationallistening.international. Or they can just email me at motivationallistening@gmail.com. Go to the website and book a 30-minute meeting with me. We'll just talk on Zoom, and you'll screen me, I'll screen you. We got to figure out if there's some chemistry, because you don't want to go if there's not some good chemistry, I mean, like, this is too much of a personal type of decision to just be like, this isn't like you enter a funnel and watch a bunch of emails. Like, you either connect with me or you don't. That's kind of how it works. So I'm not a funnel guy. I'm not going to ask you to get on my email list. Just go to my website and schedule an appointment. We'll talk.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I will post all that information down below, your links and everything. I'm also going to be putting up a blog about this opportunity and your experience on novelexcursion.com. So that should be going up next Wednesday. I'm not sure what date that is. Let's see. That is the 1st, actually. So I will have that up on the 1st of June. So you'll have more information there that that's coming straight from Adam, that he's providing me if you have questions that you want answered. But by all means, reach out to him directly with links below. I think this is an amazing opportunity. If I could, I would. I really hope to join you at some point.
People should make sure to mention your name when they reach out to me too, if they're hearing that from this interview or any of your blogs. Yes,
please. Yeah, mention my name. And the other thing I did want to offer, because I am so excited with this opportunity for Adam, with Novel Excursion, for those who have been following us, I also have travel planning as a service that I offer. So anyone who's trying to book travel for this trip with Adam, I'm going to cut the price by 50%. So you just have to mention Adam Fleming and come over to me, and I will cut my service fee by 50% just for that. So I will help you get yourself internationally, get you over there, get all your bookings squared away. Of course, with the advisement and guidance of Adam, who's been there and done that. So is there anything else you want to leave us with, Adam?
Just thank you so much for having me on your show and promoting what we're doing and being mindful about the way you travel too, Michael. I really appreciate that. I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot from you over the coming years about mindful travel too. And I love to travel, so I want to do it more mindfully. And I'm excited that that's what you're all about.
I'm so excited to meet you, and I'm happy to have you here. I still want to hear more about the Congo and all that. We've talked about that before, so I need to have you back on. I want to hear about the nonprofit work. So for those of you listening, if you're interested in what Adam does, check him out over at Story Unfolding. You'll find his book links, and then stay tuned, subscribe to this channel, because I'll have him back on again, I hope. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, awesome. Put you on the spot.
Of course.
And then I'll be over on his channel at some point soon. I think he has a podcast up too. So
I think
go subscribe to Adam's podcast.
Yeah.
What is that called?
That's awesome. It's called The Deed Show. D-E-E-D. The Deed Show. Yeah.
Awesome. I will include all those either down below or in the blog post.
Great. Cool.
All right. Parting thoughts, last opportunity. Anything else you want to leave us with? Old roads, new friends, anything poetic?
That's just it. I've got a new book coming out. I don't have a release date yet, but check in with me again on my Amazon. You can actually, I don't know if people know you can subscribe to an author on Amazon so that when they have a new book released, you'll get notified. But I do have a book coming out very soon called Old Roads, New Friends, and it talks about the trip. So more stories in there. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll have to check that out. So thanks again for joining us, and don't forget to travel mindfully.
All right.